Welcome to Atal'Dazar Mythic level 10. There's a couple ways to pull this first pack. You can either pull these two mobs into the boss or do them separately. I chose to skip them. Go straight to the first boss, Pop Hero. And this boss has a couple of abilities. First, as soon as you activate the boss, any of those purple spots on the ground, they spawn ads. Second, after the fear, he fit stakes on one person and you just kind of run away. Don't let him catch you or he'll eat you up. Massive damage. Serrated teeth on the tank is what they call a tank buster. It means that does massive damage to you. Terrifying Visage is the AoE fear. You gotta LOS him. As you can see, I didn't do that there. Luckily, the healer was on it and was able to dispel me. Massive DPS for a Mythic 10, so went down pretty easy. These mobs are harmless. They just kind of hop on folks. So as long as you stay grouped up, you can AoE them down. You can AoE stun them. Here, you got a couple of invisible mobs. Try to AoE them, get them out of stealth. The healer hexed one of them while they were CCing the extra mob. Alright, so for the mobs with the totems, if you don't kill the totem, you don't get the green goo on the ground. So what I prefer is I'll kill the mobs around the ones that are around the guard, because the guard is connected to the totem, and the guard is the one that drops down the stuff on the ground. And then when the guard is by himself, then I'll DPS down the totem, because the guard doesn't take any damage while the totem is up. But it doesn't take any damage, and there's no goo on the ground, so it makes it easier if you just DPS the mobs around them. And then when you're ready to deal with the slime on the ground, then DPS down the totem, kite the guard, try to control the damage. Otherwise, all the targets that need to be interrupted are marked. And you can see just with the totem being the first one that people target, just the amount of damage that goes around and the amount of counting that you have to do to try to minimize that. Got a couple more stealth guys on the stairs here. I'm trying to draw out. So because of that, I try to bring those guys away from the totem. Anticipating the stealth guys coming out. But again, we got good DPS in this run, so everything's kind of melting. There's the two stealth mobs finally came up. Alright, so we got the 3 totem fight here. The first phase of this boss is you got to DPS the totems. They all have to die within, I think it's 5 seconds of one another. So you stack a DPS on top of each totem and you DPS them down. The tank tanks the boss, focuses on the interrupts, tries to help out where they can in terms of what totem is not going down fast enough. And I try to keep panning back and forth to see the health levels of the totem. But as a tank, I gotta remind you that your job is to stay on the boss, because there's a toxic cast that he does that needs to be interrupted. And you can't do that if you are too far away from the boss after he leaps. Once the totems are down, then just kite him around the room. Ideally, you want range to be in the center and melee to be on its side, so that way you can control the puddles. And you just kite around. He drops a puddle, you move out. Kind of just sidestep backwards. And as long as melee is on the side, then they won't ever block you as a tank, and then you can just keep hugging the wall. And again, range stays in the middle of the room, and that way heals should be able to reach you wherever you go, and range DPS should be able to reach the boss wherever you're tanking them. Again, for these mobs, focusing on interrupts and stuns. Okay, for these ads, the small guys, again, those are the first ones we saw in the beginning of the dungeon. You can just DPS those guys down. It's the screamers that you want to focus on for the interrupt, because they do a fear. And of course, you don't want to be feared into other mobs, so you save your interrupts for the screamers cast. All right, for this next pull, pretty much just tank and spank, except you got to worry about the charge. Interrupt star, and then watch out for the frenzied charge. Again, the closer you are for those small packs, the less they hop around. All right, so for this one, it's not always ideal to do a big pull like this. But again, this group earlier was pumping out a lot of DPS, a lot of interrupts, so I felt confident. But the biggest fear of pulling a big group like this is making sure you have enough interrupts and enough stuns, because you want to interrupt wildfire, which all of the ones that are marked cast. And the wildfire is what puts a bunch of fire on the ground, limits your mobility, and causes you a lot of damage, a lot of party damage. All right, this boss, pretty easy in terms of mechanics. It's going to spawn an ad. You should stun that ad, switch to DPSing down that ad before it reaches a blood pool. If it reaches a blood pool, gets rid of it. That's one less blood pool that you have to soak before the ad casts its ability to drain life you. So transfusion is what the boss casts on you. And if you don't have the tainted blood buff on you, then the boss just gains health. So DPSing down that ad prevents that from happening. Before transfusion cast is complete, you hop into one of the blood puddles to get the debuff. And then when the boss drains life or transfuses with you, the boss gets bad blood and damages them. Dodge the spiders. I'll place a marker by the stairs to let everybody know that's where they need to group. So the mechanics for this last boss is you kind of DPS them away from where you want people to stack. Again, if they have deadly boss moss, it's going to tell them. They get a visual over their head when their doppelgangers are about to spawn. DPS's job is to DPS down the ads before they reach the boss. If they reach the boss, then they do party-wide damage. Tank's job is to the tank is to boss away from the ads that are spawning from the players, from the other players, and to move the boss away from the spiders that are spawning as they grow. So if DPS continues to stack in one area of the room, the tank can put the boss in another area of the room and then work out a pathway to get DPS closer to the boss during the DPS phase and then away from the boss during the stacking phase. And that is Atal'Dazar Mythic 10.